Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 65, recorded May 2022. This is the Trek Profiles Podcast, where each episode we talk with a Star Trek fan. We hear about their history with the fandom, and we try to figure out why we all love this show so much. I am John, your intrepid host of this whole enterprise, and I welcome you to this, the Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 65. If you wish to get in touch with us, you can reach us via email at feedback@trekprofiles.com or on Facebook or Twitter at Trek Profiles. Spoiler warning, as we recorded this, Star Trek Picard Season 2 was ending and Strange New Worlds was premiering, so all previous Trek content up to and including that point is fair game and may be discussed during this episode. You have been warned, Huban. As always, my trusty sidekick and co-host is the beautifully brotherly, boldly benevolent, and yet blissfully brunt M5 Multitronic Unit. Say hello, M5.
M5 is online.
All right, let's do the announcements.
Announcements ready.
The Trek Profiles Podcast is an independent show. If you'd like to support us, the best way for you to do that is to follow us wherever you get your audio. We are on all the major platforms, and your following us helps other Trek fans find us. All right, I have something a little special for you. My guest in this episode is Amins, and she's an avid role player with several Star Trek RP Twitter accounts. And so we decided to do a real-time Star Trek improv together, where she role plays as Ensign Amins, the worst engineer in all Starfleet who accidentally gets connected to me, and we have a little conversation. We gave it an entire 10 seconds of thought before jumping in and doing it, so it obviously must have been a very good idea. So after the ending audio cards, you can enjoy this brief RP improv that we did. And after that, we have a smattering of some other bonus content and odds and ends from the episode as usual. Enjoy it or not, as you choose. All right, I have another topic that I must address right up front. Any of my guests will tell you that I do a whole rundown before we begin the actual recording of the podcast. Now, sometimes funny and maybe interesting bits from that have ended up in the bonus material. I don't know if you've heard any of that. Doesn't matter. Anyway, one of the things that I always mention is that I may choose never to release the episode. So far, there have been 2 recordings that I chose not to release. In both cases, they were people who actively pursued being on the show and who were very persistent about it, which is laudable. And if you want to be on the show, that's definitely what you should do. I get a lot of requests. However, in both of these cases, each of these people wanted to appear under aliases or pseudonyms, both of which were anonymous. I was always skeptical of this, and I should have listened to my instincts on it, but I did not. And the interviews, how can I say this? The interviews did not go well. In fact, they went sideways, and so sideways that I decided not to develop those interviews further, and they were never turned into episodes, and they never will be. After each of those, I thought a great deal about those unrelated incidents, both of them, and that's when I implemented a new guest policy on the show, and it wasn't something that I really announced or put out there publicly, but I discuss it with each of my upcoming guests that I don't permit anonymous guests on the show. I don't want pseudonyms, and I almost always want to use real names. First, I think that one of the goals of this podcast is to showcase and normalize Star Trek fans as real and regular people who are from every walk of life, every different kind of community, and who also happen to share a passion for whatever they interpret the ideals of Star Trek to be. Appearing under an anonymous alias, it's in opposition to that goal. And also, it precludes whole areas of discussion. If you've listened to my previous episodes, you know that we talk about all kinds of things. Where you grew up, what was your introduction to Star Trek, family members, who you watch it with, and all that sort of stuff. And I just don't want all that stuff taken off the board for an interview. It's important to me, and I think that it's an essential part of the show. Second, I love it when people have an unusual point of view on the show or a heterodox opinion about some Star Trek issue or another. And I love having people on who want to take an unorthodox opinion, and I want them to be able to stand behind it and defend it, not only on the show, but publicly in discourse with myself and all of you lovely listeners out there. In these unreleased episodes, there would have been no further forum for follow-up, as my guests wanted their anonymity, and they didn't want to share any information, like a Facebook profile or a Twitter handle or anything like that. So for those two reasons, I decided not to permit anonymous guests on the show. It just wasn't worth the effort. And I'm aware that the downside of this is that there may be delightful guests that may not be able to appear on the show. I get it, and that is unfortunate. However, we do have a plethora of excellent and wonderful Star Trek podcasts in the world, and I'm a rounding error in the grand scheme of things. So if people want to be anonymous and talk Trek on a podcast, there are so many opportunities to do that elsewhere. And if Trek Profiles isn't the right fit for your story, I'd be delighted to suggest some other venues. Just hit me up and we can talk about it. So why am I bringing all this up and talking at length on this? My guest in this episode, as I mentioned earlier, is Amons. That's her Star Trek persona name. What's interesting is that she's changing her real-life name to her Star Trek persona name. Plus, she's very public on Twitter as a Star Trek fan. She was out at Mission Chicago meeting fans and saying hello. She's not really anonymous in our community. People know who she is. And the long and short of it is that I do this show for free, and if I'm going to record with you, the juice has got to be worth the squeeze. And trying to be completely anonymous on this show has not been worth it historically, so I will not suffer that to be done again. And I have to admit that it pleases me to point to every episode in my back catalog and think, there's a person who's publicly proclaiming their fandom to their family, their friends, and to all of you, and overhead, fluttering in the breeze, is the flag of the Federation. Okay, that went on a bit longer than I'd wanted, but I wanted to just clarify my position on that. It's sort of a nuanced position, but I thought I could spend a few minutes on it just to talk about that. And if you're thinking about applying for the show, it's important for you to know that. All right, let's move on and let's do the Kobayashi Maru results from episode 62 with Ashley V. Robinson. Pick your first bridge station, weapons, helm, or communications. Ashley picked communications, but the Twitter peeps said no, helm was for them by 44% to 32% for communications, and weapons rounding out third place at 24%. Recommend the better vacation spot, Beta Z, Bajor, or Bolarus. My guest picked Bajor, but it was a stunning three-way tie in the Twitter poll. Time for a nice lunch of fresh Breguet lungs. How much Gropik sauce? Lots and lots, a little bit, or none at all. Ashley wanted lots and lots, but the answer on the Twitter poll was just a dash by 50%. Lots got 17, and none for 33. Saturday night game time. Domjot, Caddiscot, or Calto? Domjot was the choice of Ashley and also by the Twitter respondents by 40%, but Caddiscot and Calto did respectably well at 30% apiece. Time to put away the synthahol and drink the real stuff with friends. Do you turn up the rock and roll in the jukebox and drink tequila with Zephram Cochrane and Counselor Troy, or sing old English folk songs and drink whiskey with Chief O'Brien and Dr. Bashir? Whiskey and Old English folk songs was the order of the day for both Ashley and the Twitter tweeps. In the Twitter poll, it came out whiskey 65 to only 35 for the tequila. Now, if you enjoyed those questions and would like to take a stab at writing your own for possible inclusion on the show, send them to me at feedback@trekprofiles.com or DM me on Twitter. All right, I've got two brief pieces of errata for you on this episode. At one point, when discussing the episode Tsunkatse, I accidentally said the name of Jeffrey Combs when I meant to say J.G. Hertzler. So sorry about that. And in another bit of trivia, we had a brief mention of Toby the Targ, and we thought it was a one-off mention in the episode Relativity, but it turns out that Toby gets mentioned again in the Voyager episode Author, and also again in the Lower Decks episode Crisis Point. Long live Toby. I regret the errors. All right, that's it for announcements. Let's get to it. M5, start the show.
Processing.
She loves that workaholic O'Brien in particular, but the Trill in general. She's partial to that most vortacious of the Vorta, Weyoun, and she loves the Enterprise D from the Chicagoland area, Illinois, Earth, in Sector 001. It's Amons. Welcome, Amons, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Hi, thanks for inviting me.
Now, I have a real name policy on the show, so I just want to address this right up front. You are changing your legal name to Almonds, is that true?
Yes, in the future I will be taking care of that.
All right, very good. So then the very first question is always, are you a Star Trek fan, Almonds?
If I'm not, then this uniform I'm wearing is exceptionally ridiculous.
As one should be wearing a Star Trek uniform to record an audio podcast, right? That is absolutely the thing to be doing, right? As I sit here in my United Federation of Planets t-shirt. Okay. What is your earliest Star Trek memory?
Gosh, my literal earliest Star Trek memory is coming home after school, and I think my father had turned it on. And the funny part is my actual earliest memories being that alien at the end credits with the blue face.
Oh, TOS. So this is TOS you're talking about.
Yes, correct. Because he literally, he scared me, and I knew he would come up every time at the end credits. So I especially got a kick out of it when that one guy dressed up as the alien in the end credits as a cosplay one time. I forget who posted that on the internet, but it was so cool.
Oh, his picture was everywhere. Yeah, his picture was everywhere. That was at STLV last year. He came as that. That's Baylock.
Yeah, okay.
Fake Baylock, actually. Because the real Baylock, of course, is the weird man-baby character that we meet, at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that was so weird when I finally watched the episode and realized that it's not even a real person or, alien, it's a costume. Yeah.
Right. In universe.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you start watching TOS with your dad?
I recall seeing bits and pieces of it, but I don't particularly remember having any memories of really watching it. I do remember watching The Next Generation, because that was kind of and I don't know why, but for us, I lived in Alaska. So sometimes things were pre-recorded and would come on at later times. But I remember it being a Friday or Saturday night thing for us to all sit down and watch the show.
Okay. And that was when it was being broadcast for the most part?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
The first big event I remember was it the Best of Both Worlds? The one where Picard is assimilated?
Yes.
And having to wait the entire summer to find out what happened next.
Right. Now people think waiting a week is a big deal, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was a long summer.
Right on. And did you keep up with your Star Trek watching after TNG and just watch it all as it came out?
For the most part. After, I remember TNG, I remember DS9 being a big deal. I mean, Voyager was a huge deal. But then, I graduated high school and life kind of happened for a while and I fell out of it. So I did not see the latter half of Voyager. I missed out on the run of Enterprise completely. And I came back around to it, I would say around the time streaming services started becoming a thing, when I was able to go back and actually watch all of them. Mm-hmm. And then I eventually kind of fell in with the community, and now it's like my life. And I say that in the nicest way possible.
We're going to talk more about that in a minute. But first, I just want to cover sort of the basics here, which is, so as we sit here in 2022, do you feel confident that you've seen all the Star Trek?
I am only 2 episodes into the animated series, so I'm short on that front.
Oh, okay. Well, you can knock that out in a weekend. I mean,
yeah.
50-foot Spock awaits you.
I know. I haven't seen that one.
It is glorious. It is glorious and crazy, and it's canonical, as we all know, that there's a giant 50-foot Spock, because we saw the 50-foot Spock skeleton in Lower Decks.
Yes.
So therefore, we know that that's true. So are you committing to becoming a completist at this point in time?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I have to now.
All right. Very good. So when you watch Star Trek, is that something that you are doing with other people? Is it a solo activity? Sort of how do you consume it?
Largely for me, it's solo. I try to bring other people in, but they kind of fall off, and so it's mostly me.
And so you're watching on a personal device, or do you watch on the big screen, or?
Yeah, I've watched it on the big screen. However, for this run of Picard, I've started to, because I exercise in the morning, so I started to just partially to avoid spoilers during the day. I'd get on my treadmill and run and watch on my iPad, so I can take it in and, not have things ruined for me.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like I have to watch the episodes as soon as possible. Not because, and it's not because I feel like I have to. Like, I'm okay with delayed gratification.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I don't want to see stuff and then have things spoiled for me. Otherwise I would be perfectly content to wait until the end of the day and sort of relax and enjoy it. But I end up watching it on my phone in the break room at the office or something. It's not all that exciting. The audio visual experience is sort of lost on me because of that experience.
You miss some details.
Absolutely. Are you a collector at all?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have a giant bin labeled Star Trek CCG, which is the collectible card game.
Mm-hmm. Do you have all the cards?
Oh, no. That would take a lot, I would imagine. I have a lot of cards. But when I was younger, I went to a camp and I got introduced to the Star Trek collectible card game. The boys were playing it and I got drug into a game. And I was intrigued because, of course, I was watching Star Trek and with my family and enjoyed it. And this was an affordable hobby for me at that age because you can buy just one little booster pack for, I don't know what it was, $3 or something.
Right. It's kid money.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started collecting and you could play a game, which I think I've only ever played the game. Probably I can count on one hand how many times I've actually played the game. But and then it got a little out of control. And then I didn't do it for a while, but I couldn't give up the cards. I couldn't. And what happened is one day when I was rewatching The Next Generation, I remember I was painting the house and watching it. And when you've gone through these cards as many times as I have, it's some of the images are burned into your memory. And so the moment you see on screen the image that you know is on this card and you know exactly what card it's on, it's it just triggers this I don't know, almost this nostalgic memory of handling them and how exciting it was to oh my God, I got I was very excited when I got Geordi LaForge's card, for example. I actually had to buy the Enterprise. My uncle thought I was insane because I spent $20 on an Enterprise card, but I had to have it.
There's no shame in that. That's glorious.
Yeah.
What's the rarest card in your collection?
Oh, that's a tough one because I missed out on the era when they were putting out the DS9 cards. And I know that DS9 cards are particularly hard to get a hold of. And so I would probably think that I have Captain Sisko and his baseball and Gul Dukat. And so those are probably fairly rare. I'm sure somebody would disagree. I think I also have some sort of Spock that's considered ultra rare. I think the Mirror Spock or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I hope you're keeping them in mint condition.
Oh, yes. They are in folders. Those little binder sheets where you stick them in little slots. And some of them are in hardcover plastic things.
Very good. Very good. So that's when people come over to the house, right? You're and here's my Star Trek collectible card game. You may gaze upon it only. There will be no touching.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And keep it out of the sun and don't handle it with your fingers.
Excellent. Okay, so what else? You got the collectible cards and what else?
I was going to say, oddly, no one has ever come over and asked to see my cards.
These people, people just don't have manners anymore, right?
I know.
You have to ask about these things, that's what I ask when I go to someone's house. Do you have any Star Trek items in your house that I could look at? And it's it is the number one thing on my mind.
But it is amazing when you actually see Star Trek stuff at other people's houses, right?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. But now in the virtual world, it's great because you're on Zoom calls and people hey, look at all the Star Trek stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've got the collectible card game. And then what else do we have?
Let's see. I have a selection of books. I have the Starfleet Technical Manual from, I think, TOS sitting on the table next to me here because I had it out. I have not real props. None of these are from the show, obviously, but I like to I print and try to make props. For example, at my grandmother's, I actually recently found, because they used to make, on TNG in particular, they would make these cases that the characters would carry. And a lot of times they made them out of old cassette carrying cases, I imagine because they were available and cheap at the time. And my grandma actually had one of these old cassette carrying cases, the exact kind that they used on the show. And I was I have to have that. And so I have that in my house now. And I'm I'm like torn between, do I like paint it to look like the prop on the show or just leave it as is, because it's kind of this weird piece of history in and of itself. So.
Oh, you're conflicted.
Yes, very.
Well, what you should do is you should send me photos of all that stuff. Send me photos of your cards. Send me photos of the cassette case. No, I'm serious. That's what I put up on the show notes page.
Okay.
The people who listen to the show, they love that stuff. That's what we're here for. Mm-hmm. So yes, please send me photos of all that. That is great. As someone who follows you on Twitter, I noticed that you're very crafty. You're actually out there making stuff, and you have like industrial tools and things. So what kinds of other things have you made for yourself in the Star Trek area?
Okay. Here's the funny part. Okay, so I have made the Voyager style pad. I've made at least 3 of them, and the funny part is I made one kind of for myself. Mm-hmm. It's kind of almost like, I would say, like a prototype or a beta, because it's like, it's not the best quality. It's decent. But then I made 2 more and I gave them away as a gift. And of course I give people the better quality ones, because it's like, I'm funny that way. It's like, I'll keep the crappier one because I don't want other people to see the mistakes or whatever. So I've done that. Let's see. I also made tricorder dice holders.
Nice.
And gosh, I've printed a couple of phasers, but I've never actually finished them. Oh, I've got this. Oh my God, this Horgon is still sitting on my desk. It was supposed to be a Christmas present for my brother. Don't tell him.
Does he need to seek Jamahara?
He does need to seek Jamahara. Because he would in particular appreciate it. And so I printed out this giant Horgon, and it's sitting on my desk, and I need to do some weathering painting to it and send it off to him. And for some reason, I'm just not doing it, so it's been sitting here.
So your process is you're doing 3D printing for most of this stuff?
Yeah, 3D printing's great.
And then what? You're finishing it with paint and all that kind of stuff?
Oh man, you have to do so much sanding and finishing, and then you have to do painting, and pads required me to print the images for the screens and then laminate them, and yeah, just lots of little details that go into making it a finished product. It really makes one appreciate the work that goes into the stuff that they have on screen, even though I know, like, for example, in the 80s, it was always stuff that was, like, rushed out. And, for example, like, whereas my pads might have physical buttons that have, like, I guess, depth to them, mm-hmm. I noticed that some of the ones they use on screen, literally the buttons are, like, just painted on. Like, they're just flat.
Yeah. So what's something that you really want to make that you haven't quite, you don't feel quite up to yet? What's like that big white whale of a thing you're going to make that you have to work up to?
Oh boy, what would be great to make? I had, this is a ridiculous thing because there's no good use for it. I had thought of making a pad, like designing a way to make a pad-like frame that fit over like an actual like iPad.
Nice.
So that way it looks like you're carrying, a Starfleet pad.
I love
that
it.
Like functioned and like did like, because that's the thing. I have this weird thing where I like to like not just make things, but I like the idea of making them actually functional. Mm-hmm. Like in my day job, I sometimes have to go out and I have to measure things, and I have a laser measuring device, which is this little tool which shoots out a laser and measures the size dimensions of rooms.
Okay.
And at one point I thought, I wonder if the mechanical like bits that are in this could be transplanted to a tricorder frame. So you go to a job site and you whip out a tricorder and actually take measurements of a room. Stupid, silly ideas, but it's just like, I don't know.
That's
that would be
awesome
really cool.
idea. That's an awesome idea, and you should do that.
Because it seems like it would be possible.
Absolutely, it would be possible, and it would be glorious. And if somebody, didn't like it, I think that sounds like a personal problem.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I've just thought about like, what else can you put in there? You could probably put in like an infrared like heat sensor thing, or you can put in, I don't know. At some point, it just becomes like another iPhone or something.
So did you like learn all these skills in like high school shop class or something? I mean, how did you get to be so crafty like this? Because like some people are crafty, like they can do stuff with like sewing and things like that, but you're out there doing like industrial equipment, which is awesome.
Part of it is that I I will get in over my head on things. And I'll just like start doing something. And it's like this stuff that I learned along the way, and sometimes it's like maybe I don't finish this project, but something I learned here becomes useful over here. So like I had a car when I was younger that wasn't the best car, and I didn't have a lot of money. So I had to learn how to fix it. And again, this is kind of almost like where some of my literally some of my jokes that I'll put on like my Ensign Heyman's account on Twitter will come from the mistakes I've made and the lessons I've learned from getting in over my head and just trying to do something that I probably shouldn't be doing myself. I try to do, especially these days with the internet, you can look up so much stuff, and I try to do the research and I try to learn and figure out what I'm doing ahead of time. But sometimes you just get in there and, the YouTube video that told you how to replace a, what was I doing? A valve cover gaskets left out a few details. And so next thing you know, now you have, instead of just one problem, you have 3 problems because you disconnected things that you shouldn't have or didn't know how to put them back together. So yeah, and then it became like, okay, and then I dream up these projects because I used to do a lot of like Halloween decorations. So then it's like, okay, this is the tool that I need to be able to do this. And so then you end up building this collection of tools and this like really obscure collection of skills. Like all of a sudden, like now I know how to use an angle grinder because I needed to cut solid metal armatures so I could make a basilisk come out of a window on a pneumatic controller. Like it's insane, some of these things. And also,
it's glorious. I love following the pictures when you post them on Twitter.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh my gosh, there's so many things I haven't shared because it's like I'm either like I'm not ready to share this yet, or I'm thinking I won't share this till it's done, and then like that takes forever, or just I should stop starting projects and finish more projects.
So, what is your most ambitious Star Trek project to date?
Gosh, let's see. I am currently sewing a uniform. And that is because I'm trying to be more reserved in my projects and try to learn how to do the basics before I jump in over my head.
Okay.
I'm getting older and starting to learn that lesson finally. That one stalled out because I'm having difficulty with the collar. But I think my most ambitious project, besides gifting the pads and the dice holders, was probably the cosplay I did for the convention, because I dressed up as 7 of 9 from the Picard series.
Okay, so that's like a civilian clothing kind of cosplay.
Yes, and it was a lot of little details, and in particular her Borg implant that goes over her eye was a lot of work. I struggled for a very long time trying to figure out how to cast this implant from silicone, because I saw a video they released on, I think, the Paramount Plus YouTube channel showing how this stuff is actually applied to Jeri Ryan, and I became obsessed with like, okay, I need to know how to do this the right way, rather than taking a 3D printed piece and like trying to like stick it to my face.
Yeah, just double stick tape to your face and off you go.
Which would have been the easy way because I had this 3D printed piece on hand already. I'd ordered it from a guy in like the UK.
So not the instructions on how to print it, but the actual product itself. Yeah.
Because what I discovered is I cannot, and if any of your listeners know where I can find the 3D model for this, please, by all means, share this with me. I cannot find the 3D model of the Borg implant Jeri Ryan is wearing in the Picard series because they changed it from the Voyager series.
Ah.
And so I could only find one guy on Etsy who was selling it as a solid piece. And so I ordered it. And what I ended up doing was I used that piece as the to make a mold. And then I casted a silicone copy of it.
Well, you should send me photos of all of that. I will post all of that, and my listeners will love it. That is for sure.
Yeah, I keep thinking I should like put up a thing like how I made my costume, but at the same time, I was at the convention. There are people who did like, I feel like so much of a better job than I did, because I had to resort to using like a knockoff jacket, and I ran out of time and couldn't do the belt the right way. But, I did the best I could, kind of thing. I spent, oh my God, I don't know how many nights I spent on eBay and used clothes listings trying to find that dang sweater that was the right color and the right weave and ugh.
I wonder if, and I've never tried this, but I wonder if it's possible just to tweet Star Trek, one of the costume people and say, hey, do we know where that sweater came from? And can I get one?
Possibly.
Like where did it come from? In some cases it might have come from Macy's off the rack, whether they dyed it or something. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember where I ended up finding this sweater came from, but yeah, I forgot two versions. One came in white that was the right style, and then I managed to find another one that came in the correct green. And I swear I'm one day going to actually dye the white one because that one seems more correct to me.
You mentioned that you were sewing a uniform. Which one?
It is the TNG uniform, the I believe season 3 on command uniform.
So the red with the Mandarin collar?
Yeah, just the jacket though.
Oh, okay. You're not going to do the pants with it or a scant version or anything like that?
No, not at this time. I do, however, have patterns for 2 other uniforms. So I have, it's just I got to finish this one and then I can move on to the next one and the next one.
All right. So you seem very interested in engineering. So I have to ask why you picked the red command color.
This case, it was because I didn't have a TNG uniform of that vintage in red because I already have it in gold, of course.
Oh, of course. Well, that's what I was asking. I wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
You seemed like an engineering first person, so I wanted to understand what was going on there.
Yeah, exactly.
So how many costumes do you have?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. I have 2 garment bags in my storage room with I don't know, 3 or 4 jackets / skirts each. And then I have 3 jumpsuits. Nice. And a pair of pajamas as well.
That's great. Send me photos of all of that.
Oh yeah, okay.
No. That's what we're here for. That's what it's all about.
I see it that way because I know I have photos.
Yeah, send them. I mean, look, you're talking to someone that right now I'm looking at my closet, which is open and right in front of me, and I have a TOS red shirt, which I bought off of Etsy, custom made for my measurements. I've got a couple of polos, Star Trek. I've got a TMP Admiral Kirk, green and white. I've got a Deep Space Nine in 2 different colors. I've got the teal and the gold for that. And I have the vest and the jacket, so I can wear it either way. I have my Let That Be Your Last Battlefield cosplay. What else do I got? A TOS blue shirt, a Kelvin Universe shirt. So, we're all in it. We're all in it together, sister. It's all good.
Yeah, I've seen some of yours. Yours are great.
But it was funny because before the cruise, the Star Trek cruise they had a couple months ago, I didn't think it was going to happen. And so they have a costume party every single night.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not buying anything. I'm just not, because it's not going to happen. They're going to cancel the cruise. They're going to cancel it. They're going to cancel it. They're going to cancel it. Then it got to be 3 weeks out. And I'm like, I don't think they're going to cancel it. So I was like, I gotta pull the ripcord on this. And so I went out and I had to buy so much stuff. And so every day there was 2 boxes from Amazon, something from Etsy, and something from eBay. So I was just buying stuff from all over. They had Roaring Twenties night. They had the costume Federation ball. They had the Ryza party. I mean, it was insane. And you want to talk about a Horgon? They had an 8-foot Horgon on the deck of the cruise ship. It was nuts.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So tell me, so you've just come back from Star Trek Mission Chicago, which as we record this was only less than a month ago. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And that was in your area, so it probably wasn't all that big of a hike for you to go. How was that experience?
Oh, it was amazing. It was overwhelming, to be honest. Because of just work and life stuff, I started to think I wasn't going to be able to go, and then I realized Saturday morning I can go Sunday. So I took all these pieces that I had been collecting to do my 7 of 9 cosplay, and I had to put them all together and finish them in a matter of 12 hours or something like that. And so I was rushing to get that done, and I have to wear a wig too, which is big and heavy. And
I saw that because if I remembered right, you had shorter hair, and then I saw the picture and you had really long hair. So that was a wig. Okay.
Yes, yeah. And so, I had to get that all together, and I had to go, and then I like finally like head down there, and I am like so nervous. But the funny part is, like, as I pull into the McCormick Center parking garage, I have this like playlist of songs that are like my favorite songs, and usually they calm me down. Mm-hmm. And just as I pull into the parking garage, what comes on but the Star Trek 2009 theme by
perfect.
I believe Michael Giacchino.
Giacchino, yeah.
Giacchino, okay, yes.
Yeah.
So that was like, oh, this has got to be a sign. This has got to be a good thing, right? So that gave me the strength to like get up out of the car, get myself together, get in and stand in front of the collection of skulls they put on the floor and be nervous. But fortunately, a friend from Twitter found me and like showed me around, and I started meeting more and more people. And oh my God, it was so amazing to meet people that I've like gotten to know and talk to for 3 years almost. And like, it became like real. It was, I hate to say it again, but it was overwhelming. It was like intense, but it was so cool.
So it sounds to me like this Mission Chicago experience was actually your first experience live in person with the fandom written large.
Yeah, it was actually. Beyond that, pretty much my experience with the fandom has been me tweeting in my lonesome.
Oh, wow. So this really was like a really big moment for you then.
Yeah, it really was.
You were wearing a cosplay on top of it.
Yes, which for me helps give me a certain level of confidence sometimes. Because it's kind of like almost like you're almost like not yourself, but you are kind of sort of. I don't know the best way to put it.
No, I completely get it. I can only tell you that one of the things I've heard, because I have heard this before on the show from other fans, is that sometimes people have a lot of angst about putting on the cosplay and going to the convention for the first time, whether it be STLV or one of the mission events or even some local thing that's going on. And it's like, you know what? Nobody is going to pay hundreds of dollars and like go all the way across town and pay to park and go to a convention center to hate on Star Trek. Like, that is not happening, right? It's easy to do on Twitter, on Facebook, and on the social medias, but no one's going to be going through all that rigmarole to give other fans a hard time. I mean, it's generally speaking a vastly positive experience for the most part, and I hope you found it to be an uplifting and positive experience.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good. So you'd never been to a convention before?
No, never been to a convention.
And so how has this affected you? Have you decided that now you have to join the traveling roadshow and visit all the other conventions, or what's the plans now?
It is actually I don't know if I'll be able to go to Vegas, but it is very tempting to maybe go to Seattle next year. But Vegas does sound like a lot of fun, just because Vegas has got that whole different atmosphere around it,
Yeah, it's going to be a little different this year. I don't even know if I would recommend this year.
Okay.
Only because the thing that made, I think, STLV so special, even though it's not STLV anymore, but we digress, is that at the Rio, it's physically separate from the rest of the strip.
Okay.
And so when you go to the Rio to STLV, you're kind of at nerd camp. There's not a lot of normies around, and I always feel bad for like that, family from Waukesha who, came out for a little Vegas vacation and they happened to book at the Rio during the week of the Star Trek convention, because they are definitely the exception. I mean, it is very much like nerd central, and people are staying at the hotel or right at the Gold Coast next door, and you're kind of all together. I think being at Bally's in the middle of the strip, there's going to be a lot of dilution because there's going to be a lot of other stuff going on and like a lot of normies around.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people are going to be necessarily staying at the Bally's. And the other part of it too is that at the Rio, everybody knew where to go. So at night, the Masquerade Bar will be going and it will be hopping until 0200 hours, every night, And you don't need to buy a ticket. You don't need to do anything. Just show up at the Masquerade and it's going to be happening all night. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like the first year in a new place, like how that's happening at all. So it's going to be a little different. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. speculating here, but we shall see. I will be there all for the whole thing, and I'm going to stay at the hotel, even though I live here. So that's we'll see how it goes. And I'll be at Chicago. I'll be at Seattle. I will also be at Seattle next year as well. So hopefully I'll see you there.
Yes.
We'll have to get a selfie together.
There you go.
And post that. So, okay. So you're looking at going to some other conventions, which is awesome. What was the highlight of Mission Chicago for you?
Am I allowed to say the churros?
You're allowed to say anything you want.
Because that was kind of like it's just funny because the previous day when I wasn't sure I was going to go, somebody posted that there's like churros there. And I was like, wait, nobody said there'd be churros. And so, of course, when I'm there, I see the churro cart and I'm like, okay, I have to get a picture with the churro and be like, okay, I came here, I got my churro, I'm good.
We don't churro shame here on Truck Profiles. Almonds, I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Just as an old, theme park fan, it's just like churros are just like an event thing for me. So that was why it's kind of like fun. But in all honesty, it was like, I think it was the people. It was honestly the people. Mm-hmm. It was almost like if I failed to like buy anything, though I did go see some of the vendors, and I did see the Picard. So I saw the Picard panel, and I saw another panel that was put on by Heather, and even if I hadn't done all that, I think it still would have been great to go and just, see friends and hang out and be able to have this like shared, interest and joy together. It was really fun. And like now I've like made like real friends, not that they weren't real before, but it's like, it's just more real once you kind of like get like that face to face and kind of really get to know each other. And they look at you and go, wow, you're tall, because I am. So that was great.
That's a common story I hear a lot is, people make friends with the fandom, on Twitter or Facebook groups or, mm-hmm. Online RP community or whatever it is. And then they go to the convention and then they start going back to the conventions so that they can be with their friends. Mm-hmm. And it's much less about the panels or, about the vendor's room or, the gala parties or whatever it is. It's more about, the tribe gathering and people hanging out and all that kind of stuff. So that's a typical story for sure. So you're going through your Twitter friends and you're turning them into real life friends. So exactly, that's sort of the convention is the engine that's making that happen for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fun.
All right, very good. So let's talk about that for a minute. So it seems like your first foray into Twitter was a Star Trek RP account. Do I have that right?
Yes. Though I think you don't know about the original one.
Oh, so tell me more.
I was actually contemplating this morning, and I realized that when I started because I heard, I think on the news, about the account Real Goldacott, who was making fun of a certain president's tweets.
Okay. And
so I remember I'd like logged on for my account, which I used to be part of Theme Park Twitter. And I saw like some of the
That's
tweets.
A thing?
Yeah, it's huge. Theme Park Twitter is very big. It's like people who earn coaster credits and, are currently very mad at Disney.
So it's Disney specific. It's not just theme parks in general.
A lot of it revolves around Disney just because they're the big name, but otherwise it's like a lot of different parks. I mean, it's funny because amongst my Star Trek stuff, I still have like a big map from a local theme park here on the wall I'm staring at. So,
that's grand.
Yeah, I still love going to theme parks, and I think my dream one day would be to go to two dreams. I guess there's a Star Trek ride, I think in Germany, like a roller coaster ride that's Star Trek themed. I would absolutely love to go on that someday. But also, and our dear friend Captain Matt knows about this, my other dream is to own a Star Trek theme park used uniform, because Paramount Parks label is on these uniforms that they used to use for the Star Trek experience, and as my understanding for some of the theme park experiences. So yes. I would they're really rare and hard to find, and sometimes they're very expensive. Is if I ever find one that's in my size, and especially if it's gold, I am going to go into a great deal of debt, and I'm going to own that uniform.
That's like take out a loan from the retirement fund to fund that purchase, right?
Yes, that's going to be me. I'm going to be bid sniping at the end. I don't care. I need to have that.
Well, let me make a recommendation then. I did an episode with Paul Mattingly. I want to say it came out in December, this past December as we record this. He was actually a performer at the Star Trek Experience here in Las Vegas. He got his start as walking around as a Klingon in one of the Paramount theme parks down in the South somewhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I want to say Ohio, Kentucky, or somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact location, but he got his start as a theme park Klingon, and was
I'm
wearing
jealous.
one of those. So maybe hit up Paul, and maybe he can point you in the right direction on that.
That'd be
I have
awesome.
no idea, but he might be able to give you some intelligence. So
Yeah.
you might want to go back and you might want to listen to that episode. He talks about what that experience was like.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and listen to that one for sure.
One of the things I remember him telling me about was that they didn't have handlers at the park.
Oh, geez.
So the fans, like there was just like lots of wild stuff that happened. Like, another Klingon, like a theme park guest would just like run up and headbutt him, and stuff like
my
that.
God.
Like, you have to learn how to manage all that because there's no one there to help you. At the Experience, it was a little different, but at that theme park, like they were totally on their own.
Oh, and I've heard horror stories. I can't imagine. That's,
So you were part of theme. We've gotten away from the thread here. So you were at theme park Twitter, right? And you decide that you heard about the Gul Dukat Twitter account, and so you made what decision?
I went to the Gul Dukat account, and because he's emulating the president, and so I go in there and I ask a couple of questions as if I were like a news reporter in the 24th century, and some people thought it was funny, and as a result I was like, well, this might be fun, and I ended up creating a Twitter account called the Federation News Network, which took off a little bit, and I parodied news, not always successfully, but people seemed to enjoy it, and it brought, and especially, given some of the challenging times we were in, it brought some levity to some of the darker news sometimes, I think. It's kind of like this almost like antithesis of real Gul Dukat, like trying to bring the real news, which I will tell you that when FNN previously was only an obscure reference to a reporter that was on the Enterprise B, which I guess the name only shows up in like a book or something.
Oh, okay.
So when the Picard series came out and the Federation News Network showed up like prominently as this like news network, I was like thrilled, but at the same time nobody knows I did this, so who am I going to tell that like, oh my gosh, like I did this news network and now it's like a big time canon thing? That's really awesome. I'm pretty sure it has no connection to my existence on Twitter, but it was just still a personal little bit of excitement to see that. The sad part is I've had a more difficult time trying to write the news stories, and I kind of like moved on to other things, so it's kind of like that one's fallen by the wayside. So I don't know if anybody else wants to write for that, you're more than welcome to. But it still exists out there, and like its most popular tweet was a joke about Praxis exploding as like a gender reveal thing. That's like the literal height of that account. So
the one thing I've discovered about Twitter, Amon's no joke, is that there are some tweets I think about and re-edit and think about again and think about and rework and redo and sweat for like weeks, send it out and nothing happens.
yes.
And then some idiotic tweet that occurs to me while I'm walking the dog that I type out one-handed while I'm walking Bodhi through the park. 3,000 likes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've totally been there. Yeah. Things that I've spent hours writing, nothing. Yeah. And then you're like, this is okay.
It's so weird. It's so weird. I mean, I think one time I just tweeted, "You'll flood the whole compartment," which is a line, of course, from Star Trek 2. And that thing went like stratosphere, I was like, wow, and I think that was actually one of those where I was like walking the dog and I just decided to randomly tweet something. It's so bizarre. So then you sort of let the news account sort of go fallow, and you started tweeting on the role play account.
Yes. Later that same year after I kind of created it, because I started to pick up on, I was only this like news entity, so it's like hard for me to like interact with actual people. So I started to pick up on that there's like this whole like vibrant like role play / fandom out there, and I picked up flavors of it, and I'm like, I'm not ready at this time to like, I guess, be myself on the internet because I don't feel like I'm a very interesting person. So off of a joke my brother makes, thinking about like who is like the worst engineer in Starfleet and what kind of dumb things would they do, I create this character, this Ensign Ammons character. And, you know, it's like she gets assigned to Deep Space Nine and she becomes Chief O'Brien's problem. And like, what's, you know, partially because there is this great account, Annoyed O'Brien, out there who is wonderful. That person, if I ever meet them, I'm going to give him a hug. And so can play kind of this foil to them. And like that account was really great at doing some of the back and forth, and kind of the character kind of developed, you know, outward from there. And I began to become aware, you know, of just how big the Trek Twitter like fandom is that exists. And it kind of opened up doors for me to eventually kind of come online as like myself, because I realized like amongst these people, I would be accepted. And
oh yeah,
you know, it's funny because I don't know, I went through a long period of time of just being like always this outsider. And so to be like accepted and like, you know, even like celebrated in some ways amongst this group of fans who shared this joy and the love that I have for the, you know, the work. It was, I don't know, it was still kind of unbelievable that, you know, that this is, I mean, look, I'm being interviewed. Who am I? I'm just some random person who just finds, I don't know, I just love this.
Well, I mean, I think that's actually something we were talking about before we recorded, before we started recording, which is that the purpose of this podcast is to celebrate and normalize just the everyday people out there who love Star Trek. That's what this is, right? We're saying, you know what, Trekkies are everywhere. We're just there's a huge number of us. We love Star Trek, and we're here to tell you why we love it, and maybe you can figure out for yourself why you love it so much. I feel like that's part of the purpose here, you know. And one of the things I've often wrestled with, you know, and I would be interested to hear your reaction or thoughts on this, is that I always ask people, are you a Star Trek fan, as part of the show? And they say yes, and I always believe them. And well, it's funny, I know, but there's almost like I see in some elements of the fandom that there's like these rules, right? Like to be a Star Trek fan, you have to like it this way or that way, or love it with the exact same intensity and for the same reasons that I do. And sometimes those reasons are in conflict with other people's reasons, and they don't agree on the reasons. And I think I can't manage this, because sometimes people have said like, I can't believe you had person X or Y on the show. Yeah, like they're not a fan. Right. Or a fan in the way that I believe the fandom should be. And I think, you know, I'm just taking people's self-professed exclamations to be true. Yes. If they tell me they're a fan, I say, yes, let's talk about it, you know, and I try not to be judging McJudgerson about it. But, you know, that's not what people do on Twitter. People on Twitter love the hot take and to be judging McJudgerson.
No, exactly. Like on the flip side, I remember encountering an account one time who expressed, like, lamented, like, I don't feel like I can be a fan because I can't afford costumes or props or any of this, you know, merchandise. And I was like, you don't, and I don't think they believe me. And I feel sad for that, because like, I remember getting like, I don't know that your numbers are exactly an account of like how popular you quote unquote are, but it's like, I wasn't like a nobody at this point. But even then I didn't have like, in my opinion, like a lot of like stuff, like before I went crazy buying uniforms. And I was trying to be like positive and be like, you don't have to have anything to be a fan. You just gotta, you know, just be a fan. There's no gatekeeping going on here. Not by me, at least. I know there's plenty going on by other people, but like, just enjoy what you love. Maybe you only like Voyager. Maybe that's just your thing. That's fine.
Yeah. One of my earliest Star Trek experiences myself was begging my mother. I know I've told this story on the podcast before. Begging my mother to take me into Manhattan to go to the Star Trek convention, and she was like, "Well, you have to get the money to buy the ticket," and it was, I think, like $20 or $30. Which for, you know, 9 or 10-year-old kid is, you know, a fair amount of money. And so my plot was I would walk across the street to the Waldbaum's grocery store and I helped old ladies to their car and helped them with their packages for money.
Oh.
And that is how I got money to go to my very first Star Trek convention. So I in no way would shame anybody for not being able to afford these things. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Well, I've seen people who literally they draw their communicator badges with, paper and tape it to their chest. And it's like they post pictures and it's like, you know what? You can go ahead and call yourself a cosplayer. I mean, it's something you love and you're emulating it in the best way you possibly can. I mean, I beat myself up on accuracy, but that's just me setting my own personal goals. Like, I think if you wear like, I don't know, you find a random black jacket with a yellowish yoke on top and you want to pretend you're on Voyager, like, do it. Do what brings you joy in your life and don't let others hold you back.
Totally get it. So I just want to ask one more question about the whole RP Twitter thing, which is that it seems to me, because I have a fair number of RP accounts that follow me, even though I don't really engage in that. But one of the things I've noted, well, I don't. It's a podcast Star Trek account, right? So I'm not playing a character or anything. But the people are welcome to follow me and enjoy my idiotic ramblings, but and my idiotic live tweeting of episodes when I do that. But one of the things I've noticed is that there seems to be a lot of rules about RP Twitter.
I would definitely say there's an interesting subculture that goes on there. Some people take it very, very seriously. Like, they take it to the extent of, like, they write fan fictions about their characters, which again, I do that too. Actually, I have a half-written story about the origins of the ensign.
Okay.
She's a very sad backstory, actually, but because it's kind of like I took this character. There's a weird connection between like comedy and tragedy, I feel like. So she is simultaneously this like comedic character, but with this mix of tragedy that is, but it's also a story about finding yourself and becoming your own person. And it's kind of like, okay, I am in some ways kind of dealing with my own past through the story. And it's like there is a little bit of like, learning to put your past in the past and becoming like your own person. Mm-hmm. Which is part of the reason why she can on Deep Space Nine be like, she seems silly and, joyful, is because she's dealt with these darker parts of herself. So anyway, that's very tangential. But yes, there's definitely very serious parts of Trek, the role players. And I know that comes from a longer history of role playing than I was even partaking in, because there are rules about how you like express yourself, about how you like say that this is like out of character. And then there's also like the sillier, like just parody role play where you just say the most random things and you can involve stuff that doesn't actually happen in universe. Like, for example, my characters had numerous conversations with the EMH and Seven of Nine and even some TOS characters. And it's like, none of those people were ever on Deep Space Nine. But for the sake of the joke, you just take into account like who those characters were and how they would react. There's a certain level of, I think, improv to it, where you're just reacting to and trying to like, yes and the joke.
Yes, the fundamental rule of improv, right? It's always yes and.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, there are rules, but I think if you really wanted to get involved, like just get involved. But I've seen a lot of people come and go over the years, and it's something some people sometimes do for a couple months and then they drop off and then never hear from them again. And but then there's some people who have been doing it consistently for years and years.
But I think there's some truth in what you said, is that people oftentimes in both fanfic writing and RP are often using those as vehicles to deal with their own personal issues.
Yes.
And I think that's just true and has been true for a long time. I don't think that people can necessarily come up with a lot of this stuff just out of whole cloth. Mm-hmm. I remember reading an interview with a writer who said, I have taken myself and every other person I've ever met, even the most incidental person, hung them up by their heels and shaken them until all their good stories fall out and taken them into my own writing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just part of how it is, So is that why you had to start a separate account?
You mean separate from my Ensign account?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because I felt like what happened was I would start interacting with real people, but it became difficult to tell my character apart from like my reality. So, because again, there's a lot of me in that character, I wanted to be clear that this is who I really am, as opposed to this is a goofy character who exists outside of reality, and kind of this other like parodiness, this silly person, and this is my real me. This is my real thoughts about real things in the real world.
Well, okay, Almonds, I think it's time we talk about some episodes. Are you game?
Sure.
As is always the case, I had the M5 do some gentle internet sleuthing, and we have a list of episodes to talk about here, including some things the M5 says I'm to ask you about, and I don't know exactly what these mean, so I think we should just dive in.
All right.
Tell me about your experience of watching the Voyager premiere.
Oh, the Voyager premiere is very special to me. When I was young, I remember when Voyager came out because it was a big deal. I just remember what a big promotional push there was for that. And to add to it, in Alaska, we only had 4 channels. And I couldn't even get all of them because there's literally a mountain between us and the transmitters. And so when they introduced this channel 5 UPN channel, and this was the big premiere episode was Voyager. I remember I was finally given the family's old TV. And so I set it up in my bedroom. And my father was a radio engineer. So he had all sorts of just random electronic stuff around. So I had set up the TV, and I had the rabbit ears on there, and I had managed to somehow hook it up to this weird amplifier he had and a couple of speakers. And so I got to tune it in very carefully in my bedroom and watch the series premiere of Voyager, and I was so excited. I remember the TV literally had the 2 knobs, the VHF and the UHF knob. That's how old this TV was.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that. It was just what an experience that was. A new TV network, a new TV show, a female captain. We broke so much ground in my own bedroom for one. So that was a big event for me.
I do remember, because I'm of an age where when the TV broke, I would have to walk across the street with my dad to the hardware store and go to the tube testing station.
Oh, my.
Where they would have this giant electrical panel in the hardware store, and you could plug in your tube and it would tell you if it was working or not.
Wow.
If I can find a picture of that, I think I'll put that in the show notes. People wouldn't believe how weird that was, but I actually remembered having to do that. So that's a glorious memory. Did you decide right then and there that Janeway was your captain and Voyager was your show?
I was just excited for Janeway. I'm sad that I kind of fell off in the later seasons. Sadly, and this is funny because I was overwhelmed when Jerry Ryan retweeted my picture, but I remember when they introduced 7 of 9 and being literally kind of mad about it, because especially the way they promoted her when she first showed up, she was overly sexualized. And it was almost a little insulting that it's okay, what are we turning this show into now? And I think that's about when I fell off. And it took me years before I finally went back and finally watched all the episodes and realized that what an amazing job she did with that character. I don't know. I'm just kind of blown away that she really made something of that character, and you really learn to respect her and her journey as this character from this Borg to, trying to be human, and now even more so with the further adventures in Picard. It's just, I feel bad that I didn't give her that chance, and that's a life lesson for me. But at the same time, you also learn that she was purposely sexualized, and that was the point. And so my anger was not unfounded, but I should have still given it a chance.
Understood.
Yeah.
So another thing the M5 wants me to ask you about is your youth and seeing Generations. So I'm not sure what this is. Tell me what's going on here.
That was another big one, because when I was younger, I got to a point and I decided I really wanted to be in film. And I almost went to a film school, and I regret not going. So I remember what a big event that was when Generations came out, because I had a little bit more of that, kid money, and I would go and I would buy the magazines that had the kind of sneak previews, before the internet came about, and you can find sneak previews and hints and people talking about speculations about what this movie's about. And, I bought the magazines talking about, and it's kind of fascinating to go back and read what they thought Generations was going to be about, versus what it ended up being about. And I had seen Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, in the theater, and being blown away by the scene where they were weightless and the blobs of blood floating in the ship. And I knew enough about the original series, and I had always watched TNG, and to see them do this crossover was just this cosmic event for me as a kid. Like, I remember and that's why it's sad to me some people talk about how awful that film is. And I understand their points, but at the same time, it was such a big event for me to go see this movie. Like, I don't know that there's a lot of movies that I like asked to go see, and that was definitely one of them. And yeah, goodness, it's like just, I felt like it was such a great handoff to see the old crew and the introduction to the Enterprise B, which you've known nothing about before that event, and the mystery of Guinan coming aboard on the Ribbon, and I don't know, it just takes me back to the excitement I had as a kid.
So we've been talking a lot about Seven of Nine. So let's talk more about Seven of Nine. Let's talk about some Voyager. Let's start with an episode that is basically Star Trek does a rom-com. So let's talk about Someone to Watch Over Me, Voyager, Season 5, Episode 21. What about this episode is special or noteworthy for you?
For me personally, it was just watching it is just like Seven trying to learn from relationships fascinated me. There are a lot of problematic moments in that episode.
Okay.
You know, stuff like the Doctor kind of low-key falling in love with her, even though she's both his friend and patient.
Right.
Kind of
definitely an issue there.
Definitely a little bit of an issue because, you know, she's kind of developed this like level of trust with him, and it's kind of a little bit of a violation of that trust. It's understandable again, but a little problematic. But it was just fun stuff like B'Elanna's personal opinions of her observing their relationship and Seven's crassness about it. And I don't know, it's part of it reminds me of kind of like some things when I was growing up, because I never felt like I belonged, and I always felt like everyone else kind of like knew what to do, and especially with relationships, and I couldn't figure it out for the life of me for a long time.
We're a lot alike in that regard, let me tell you.
I mean, it's later in my life, I kind of sorted out why I had some of that difficulty, and I'll just say that I don't have the rainbow flag next to my name because I like pretty colors. But yeah, there's just so many great lines in that one. You know, like B'Elanna, Klingon breaks Borg's nose line is a great one. I have actually literally used on a couple occasions. I remember when Seven is looking at the dresses and she goes, "I am uncertain how to wear such a garment." I have said that myself. So when they are doing the practice date with her and the crewmen, I was just thinking it interesting that I find it odd that restaurant traditions haven't changed in 400 years. Given that,
yeah, exactly.
You know, that we have replicators now. Why do we have to observe certain traditions regarding waiters and ordering? And that one was just struck me as like, interesting.
There's one bit in that episode which, no matter how many times I see it, I will burst out laughing like an idiot every single time the EMH is standing in front of the monitor and he's going, "And Fortress Ovum is under attack." Yes. And he's waving his arms around in like these big circles. There's just something about the physical comedy of him doing that. It's so stupid. I laugh like uproariously every single time. It cannot be helped.
But at the same time, it throws back to like the overly enthusiastic like health teacher trying to teach you some of these concepts. It's like it feels like very real, but yes, it's very comical at the same time.
Oh God, you just brought me back to Mr. Vesey's 5th grade health class. Oh, not a good memory. Not a good memory. Abort. But one of the things I do note about the episode is, and I'm a little bit of a Neelix defender, so I just want to point out that there he is in the episode trying to make this cheese, to do a good job. You know, he's always trying to do whatever they ask him to do. He's always trying to be helpful, which I appreciate, about the Neelix character for sure.
Well, I mean, when your ambassador is a character from Kids in the Hall, you know something's up.
All right, well then let's continue talking about some 7 of 9 stuff. Let's talk about Tsunkatse. Now, this is one of the very first times on this show and I've done 60 something episodes and probably talked about, I don't know, 150, 250 episodes of Star Trek, that someone said, no, I really want to talk about Tsunkatsu
Really?
on Trek Profiles. Yeah. So this is Voyager Season 6, Episode 15. This, of course, is the one where we have The Rock. We have the wrestling steel cage matches and all of that. And we have the Shore Leave Planet, of course, where they're abducting people to fight in the ring. And basically, we have Jeffrey Combs teaching Seven of Nine how to wax on, wax off. And so tell me what's going on here with this.
I don't know. That's just a ridiculously fun episode. I mean, it's the closest you can get to Janeway versus the Dominion War, because you have J.G. Hertzler and, Jeffrey Combs both in the episode, playing appropriately dissimilar, but also at the same time familiar roles, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then, come on, The Rock was fun. I know it was part of some ridiculous WWF crossover thing, but
UPN promotion,
yes,
for WWE SmackDown on UPN.
But it's just, I don't know, it was they made the best of it, I think, and it just was a lot of fun. Plus, as a kid, I had seen some of the wrestling, so that was a thing. So, and I still enjoy rock movies, so it's just kind of just fun to see kind of interests crossover,
If my memory serves, I think I read that this is the only time in Star Trek that JG and Jeffrey Combs actually act together in a scene.
I would totally believe that.
Because we never get Martok and Wei-Yun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nor do we get Martok and Brunt.
So this is it, right? That's their one little moment. So yeah. By the way, I really, really felt like we needed to see Toby the Targ. I really need to know more about that. I want a Toby the Targ. And the fact that B'Elanna is taking stuffed animals with her when she's traveling, totally cute. Mm-hmm. Totally cute.
You hear that, Mike McMahon? We need to have a Toby the Targ figure in Lower Decks.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I have the Geordie Bear from Mission Chicago upstairs, so I am on board for Toby the Targ. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just, I think we just get it as a throwaway line. I don't think we ever actually hear about Toby the Targ ever again. I don't think. So I feel like we need some more of that in this show. It's also weird that the Klingons eat those. So
yeah,
I don't know. The Klingons are very weird. So someone said to me online, the Klingons don't make a lick of sense if you really think about it for more than 5 minutes. And I kind of agree with that. But, it's just kind of the show and you just kind of go along with it.
I guess it's got to be about the equivalent of someone with pet chickens, I guess.
Exactly right. Okay. So let's continue talking about Seven of Nine, who I guess is a favorite of yours, because another episode that came up on the list is Stardust City Rag, Picard Season 1, Episode 5. This, of course, is the episode with the triple murders in which Icheb, Bjayzl, and Maddox all get killed. We have Free Cloud, which for my money is probably one of the most interesting planets that we've ever seen in all of Star Trek, in my opinion. And we learned that it has a Mott's hair emporium. And of course, Quarks has suddenly become the Applebee's of the Federation. So in your opinion, what is going on in this episode that makes it special and or noteworthy for you?
I mean, obviously there's that. I mean, there's so much to love about it. But we come off of the tail end of Seven of Nine showing up as the surprise ending of the previous episode. And let's be honest, people who were picking up on signals knew something was up when they were talking about the captain of the ship that was being attacked, and they kept using he and him and he and him. And it's just you knew that the level to which they were saying that was meant to, what's the term? Mislead you, or misdirection. Yes, like in a magic performance, it's misdirection. So of course then Seven of Nine shows up and she utters her line about Picard owing her a ship. But this episode was for real, the real reintroduction of the character. And it's kind of like meeting a friend from high school again, It's you've realized what they've been up to all their life. And it's not all of it is great and wonderful. And
no, it's bad.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's been tough.
So yeah, it was really great to meet Seven of Nine all over again and see her dealing with her humanity some more, and how rough the reality of trying to, it's that whole thing where it's we paint this picture of this Starfleet utopia, but the reality of trying to maintain it is a lot dirtier. So here she is. She didn't get into Starfleet, which we learn more about later, and what she's been doing ever since, and the loss of what she had left of family and yeah, what she has to do to kind of get by, I guess, in this rough world she's been dragged into from the Delta Quadrant. So, and I don't know, some of it, like Captain Picard with his ridiculous French accent is just fun too, and
It's like over the top.
it really was. Oh my god, when he's talking about how she's just riddled with Borg. Like how she's so disgusting. And
It really is like Dirk Dastardly, you know, kind of stuff. I mean, you know, mustache twirling sort of villain stuff going on there.
exactly. And of course I love Seven of Nine just raising your eyebrow. Speaking of which, I spent 6 months trying to learn how to raise that eyebrow because I can't raise that one, and I was unsuccessful. But someday I'm going to figure that out so I can get my Seven of Nine cosplay down good.
Nice. Yeah, I can only raise the right one. So there you go. I can only really... Oh, wait, there's the left. There's the right. Oh, well, I can do it. Okay.
That's 1,000 times better than what I got.
But I can only do this with the right hand. It doesn't work with the left. The Vulcan salute.
You know, I had somebody else tell me that too, that they can only do it with the one hand.
I can't do it with the other hand. I don't know why. I'm missing whatever.
Yeah.
My ODN junctions are not working correctly on the left side. I'm not sure what's going on there.
I'm semi-ambidextrous, so I can.
Good for you. So this episode gets a lot of flack for being exceptionally gory, and also for Seven's decision at the end to murder Bjayzl.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those premises?
It's very much that mama bear kind of protective sentimentality that she doesn't want this person to do that, to do what horrible things she had to, like, you know, mercy kill her child. And so she doesn't want this to happen to anyone else. And she knows full well that this character will just go back to doing it. And she does what she feels she has to. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's not glorious, but at the same time, I completely understand her motivation to do so. Again, it's part of that whole, like, dark history that Seven has lived through up until this point.
Yeah, she's been hard done by for sure, by the Federation and Starfleet. And I think also by her parents, who I charitably describe as dumb as a box of rocks in the episode when we get to experience them. I think one of the things I think about the episode that jumps out at me when I was rewatching it is the scientist or butcher or whatever, that technician, I guess, who's operating on Icheb, if that's the word you want to use.
Yeah.
She goes, "Where's your cortical node, buddy?" And then, like, half a second later, it comes walking in the form of Seven of Nine, right? Because I think in Improbable Cause, we learned that Icheb gave up his cortical node.
Yeah, that was so sad.
All right, so it was a nice little piece of connection there. Yeah, I mean, it was sad, but it was a nice piece of continuity, I think. Mm-hmm. So I always like it when that happens. But certainly an episode which I thought was very, very different in tone than anything before or after.
Yes.
I think in a way it's a Star Trek episode that could only be made today, right? You would not see anything like that in any of the previous versions of Star Trek, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we've been talking about 7 of 9. Let's continue on. There's a lot of 7 of 9 on the list. So let's close it out with one more. Let's do Relativity Voyager Season 5, Episode 24, in which 7 of 9 is recruited to do some timeline fixing by Braxton. So what's going on in this particular episode that is special to you?
I was going to say, besides the return of Braxton, who became an interesting kind of foil, considering Janeway had no desire to be involved in temporal nonsense whatsoever, it's interesting that kind of comes up, 2 or 3 times?
Yeah, several times, yeah.
She's messed with so much temporal stuff, it's almost not even funny at that point, or by the end of the series. But yeah, I think the biggest thing from that episode, I think that most people will say from, is 7 of 9 in a uniform, like she should have been. Let's be honest. Like, again, it's that whole overdone sexuality thing. It's like she still looked great in a uniform, and it was neat to see her in it at least once. Maybe we'll get to see her in one again. Not only that, but for me personally, because I role played this ensign character, is she was an ensign in the episode. And Janeway addresses her as such. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of low-key made plans to role play as 7 of 9 in uniform someday. So
nice.
I have that as a goal.
Yeah, do that at Mission Seattle, and we'll get some video of that.
There you go. That would be fun. But also, Janeway has a great line that I remember from that episode, and I keep that in mind a lot. Is she says, "Everyone deserves a second chance," and I think that's a really important line to keep in mind sometimes.
What was interesting to me is that besides the fact they keep reverting Seven to last saved game several times throughout the episode, is that, they were able to, she was able to unilaterally take the Maquis and put them in a Starfleet, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at this point, taking the Borg and putting them in a Starfleet is not that much of a stretch.
Yeah, exactly. She put the Maquis in Starfleet a long time ago.
Yeah, you might as well just continue. But something that jumped out at me on this rewatch in preparation for this, which I just caught for the very first time, was that when we see Janeway getting introduced to the EMH for the first time, she says, "Someone's got to work on his bedside manner." And then later in the episode, when the EMH is walking out of the room, he says, "I have an excellent bedside manner," as he walks out of the room. And it was just a little bit of a contrast I caught. And I just thought that was
that. That's awesome.
It was just very clever, because only Robert Picardo could deliver that line, in sort of that EMH way as he's walking out of the room. "My excellent bedside manner." Now, I will say that I gave it like at least 60 seconds thought and couldn't figure out all the temporal mechanics, timey-wimey stuff in this, and I just gave up.
Yeah, that one's a little complicated with all the back and forth. I mean, especially, they kind of go over at the end when they talk about they have to reintegrate 3 Braxtons. It's like, all right, that's how do you do that?
Yeah, I didn't understand. You know what? It's just one of these things where you just have to press the I believe button and just move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You cannot try to make any sense of it because it doesn't. And go ahead.
I was to say, this is part of the reason why I'm intrigued to learn more about the temporal war, but I'm also afraid that it's going to be a lot of that very confusing, don't know what's going on kind of stuff. And you kind of have to just roll with it or don't.
All right. Well, then let's talk about another episode. Let's move on and talk about some Deep Space Nine. Treachery, Faith, and the Great River, in which we get some great performances from Jeffrey Combs and from Rene Auberjonois of blessed memory. And of course, we also get Star Trek defending the whole idea of capitalism and the wealth of nations and humans' proclivity to truck, barter, and trade. Now, that's deliberately controversial, so I'll just put that out there for you to respond to and for you to tell me what's going on in this episode that is special and or noteworthy for you, Amens.
This one has so much great character development, kind of this is the late, great Aaron Eisenberg, who I got to interact with very briefly before he passed away. I would say that there's a lot of the interaction with O'Brien is very similar to kind of how key elements of that kind of level of working with, another officer who's giving him, making things difficult for him. Is kind of I've definitely used some of that writing in writing my character, how he's upset at Nog for stealing, the desk. It's the characters who are trying to do things for all the right reasons, but making his life more difficult. And because he is he's essentially kind of the manager, it's his problem to deal with. He gets stuck holding the stick in this case, And there's even interactions between Quark and O'Brien that are classic, yelling about why can't my bar open kind of thing. And then of course you've got the way that I think this was the seeds of the Weyoun Damar difficulties, where you find out that what happened to Weyoun 5? He seems to have died mysteriously on a transporter pad you were supposed to be on. That's classic. And I've definitely seen that played out in role play, and it was a lot of fun.
And Damar offering him some Kanar, of course.
Yes, of course. And then, of course, you've got this Weyoun 6, who is this a tragic character because he's trying to do the right thing in this series of this. It's almost the one, I don't know, good person in a bad family, trying to get out, trying to be their own person, and they don't want them to leave. And it was, and then and even Kira. There's so many great elements, Kira talking to Odo about how he died in the hands of his god, and what that must have felt like for him, because she is a big time religious person. Like what that would, she's thinking about what it would have meant to her. And, it's the one person Wei Yun hates more than anyone else is Wei Yun.
Yeah.
Like the interaction between Wei Yun 6 and Wei Yun 7, like Wei Yun hates nobody more than like his own self. Like I'm sure it probably would have been the same if Wei Yun 8 and 7 were in the same scene. They would have hated each other. Like there's that weird like self-hatred to his character. But also that, oh yes, and they also introduced, like, I think that was the first time we saw that the founder was sick.
Yes.
Like there are so many huge elements that carry on through the season there that are just fantastically important. And again, it's just such a well-written episode, It's got everything that I love about Deep Space Nine. Oh, and of course Wei Yun's line where he goes, "Of course I'm paranoid. Everyone is trying to kill me."
Well, I think anyone who's trying to eat a pepperoni pizza with chopsticks, is probably worth that, right? We should chase that person down. Mm-hmm, yeah. As a Chicagoland person, you should understand how offensive that is.
Exactly, yes.
Although I do want to say, I mean, you really just have to acknowledge that moment when the Wei Yun is dying in Odo's arms, right? Mm-hmm. And he gets that blessing from Odo, and Jeffrey Combs really sells it. I mean, he really sells it. And you have to acknowledge, right? I mean, the Vorta were engineered for that.
Yes.
In a way, I was thinking about this the other day. I was talking to my son about our little dog here. We have a little Boston Terrier, Bodhi. And I was explaining to him, Bodhi's entire breed was built around chasing small things. Like, he is genetically engineered to chase small things. So when you throw that ball, he cannot do anything other than chase it. There's so much breeding went into chasing that ball. Mm-hmm. It's literally the same thing with the Vorta, right? That is the thing that they number one want to do is serve the founders. Then they were genetically engineered for that out of these little lemurs that were eating nuts and berries in the trees, right?
Yes, exactly.
So, all right, very good. So, Ammons, we've talked about the fact that you are very active on Star Trek Twitter with 5 Star Trek Twitter accounts, 3 of which we've talked about, 2 which are secret, but managing 5 accounts is a preposterous number. You are spending a lot of your Quatlus on cosplay.
Yes.
Collecting your collectible cards, 3D printing things, buying stuff, going to conventions, and now you're spending a couple hours talking to some rando off the internet about Star Trek.
Very delightful rando.
Well, if you find out who that is, let me know. I'd like to interview them. And so I guess the question is, why does Star Trek even matter to you? Why is it such a big part of your life?
I actually thought in depth about this one. Star Trek has always been there. Even when I kind of went away, it's like it has always been there for me, and it's always been a groundwork even to communicate with my brother. It's sometimes there were periods I barely talked to him, but we would send each other stupid Star Trek memes or it's just, and it's especially now that it's allowed me to connect to so many new people and wonderful people and who have been such a positive influence in my life. I mean, I'm literally going back and earning a college degree because I was amongst people who were supportive and positive about it. I mean, I can't believe I get followed by people who are rocket scientists, genius people who want to see what I'm doing. And so it's just been great. It's been a wonderful experience.
Well, Ammons, I've enjoyed our conversation, but I have to tell you that the M5 has signaled me that it is now time for the Kobayashi Maru. The Kobayashi Maru is a challenging and difficult test, cunningly prepared by the M5 just for you. Should you not only survive the test, but pass it as well, the M5 will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our little program. Are you ready to face the Kobayashi Maru lightning round, Ensign Ammons?
Yes, I am, sir.
M5, load the Kobayashi Maru simulation and prepare to record our guest responses.
Kobayashi Maru programmed and ready.
Visit 10 Forward in Los Angeles or 10 Forward on the Enterprise D.
10 Forward on the Enterprise D.
Which tool is best to have in an emergency? An ODN coupler, a phase compensator, or a left-handed spanner?
A phase compensator.
Hang out with a Dax. Will it be Audrid, Emily, or Tobin?
Emily.
You're thirsty. Have a Sumerian sunset, a Forcus 3 cocktail, or some nice, fresh Mult nectar?
Definitely the Sumerian sunset.
And finally, choose your first engineering job. Shuttlecraft maintenance, holodeck maintenance, or food replicator maintenance.
Replicator maintenance.
Simulation complete. M5, please compute the results and tell us if our guest has passed the Kobayashi Maru.
Analyzing.
Ammons, I am pleased to tell you that the M5 has calculated that you have passed the Kobayashi Maru simulation. Congratulations, my friend.
Hey!
And now, the M5, who has analyzed your answers, will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our little program. M5, what title shall we award our guest?
Anson Ammons is awarded the title of Assistant Starship Design Engineer at Tranquility Base.
So there you go.
How perfect.
So I'm almost afraid to ask this question because I don't know how many different places you're going to direct them. This might be quite a lengthy answer. Ammons, please tell people how they can get in touch with you and follow you and all of your various exploits.
Probably the best place to see me is on Twitter at AmunsRaw, which is a kind of almost more of a Stargate-ish joke, AMUNS_raw. Or, of course, if you want to read silly things, you can go to at Ensign_Ammons. Yeah, those are the best places to find me online.
Ammons, thank you so much for being part of Trek Profiles.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Here ends this installment of the Trek Profiles podcast. And before we offer a Trek quote to close this episode, I'd like to remind you that you may send us your considerate communications of criticism, your maddening memorandums of musings, or 3D printed statues of yourself doing the Vulcan salute to feedback@trekprofiles.com or on Facebook or Twitter at Trek Profiles. Anything you send us may be used in the show, or it may be left as a snack on a Gorn breeding planet. This time, I leave you with a quote from Duquesne, who in the episode Relativity said, quote, "Oh, Captain, Braxton was right about one thing. Voyager shows up on our sensors far too often. Try to avoid time travel." Close quote. Thanks for listening, and live long and prosper.
This handcrafted podcast is brought to you by Stars and Sky Media Lab. It's cosmic.
What's this? Something's happening on the communications device. We're getting a temporal
Hello?
Hello? Who is this?
This is Ensign Ammons. I'm putting in a material supply request.
Wait, what? From Deep Space Nine?
Yes. Deep Space Nine here.
You've got the 21st century on the line. This is not Requisitions Department.
Oh, geez. I hailed wrong again. Did I go through that wormhole? The chief told me not to go through that wormhole.
Do you have a few minutes? Because I have a few questions for you. I've always wanted to talk to a Starfleet officer.
I guess so. Chief's on break. Should be okay.
What? So you work with Chief O'Brien?
Oh, all the time. All the time. He pretty much won't let me go work alone anymore.
He won't let you work alone, so you got to say more about that.
Well, sometimes when I'm left alone, things happen. And then he gets really upset and he has to spend all night fixing them.
Oh my gosh. So what's like the worst thing that's happened, do you think, working for Chief O'Brien as far as repairs?
Well, we misplaced the Defiant for about 3 weeks. That was really, that was a tough time.
What happened? Did you turn on the cloaking device and forget where it was or something?
Yeah, I completely forgot where I parked it. I didn't know if it was the upper pylon or the outer docking ring.
So you're in engineering then?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Do you have a favorite spanner?
I like the phase spanner because it spans phases.
Did you request assignment to Deep Space Nine or were you sent there?
Oh, no, yeah. You see, when you get the admirals really mad at you, they send you off to the farthest station they can think of from where they're at. So, no, it was more of a punishment.
And do you regret this, or did this turn out to be a blessing in disguise?
Oh, no, I don't regret it at all, though I think Chief O'Brien does.
What do you see as your future in Starfleet? What's in store for you?
You know, what would be really nice is if I got another PIP someday. That would be fun.
Oh, right. You don't want to suffer from the, Harry Kim syndrome.
Well, yeah, exactly. That guy, he's a little grumpy at parties.
So I want to know a little bit about life on Deep Space Nine. Can you tell me about some hidden fun spots that the tourists wouldn't necessarily know about?
Well, there's always Upper Pylon 3. It's a very popular place to take your dates. But then also if you go down by the reactor core, it's nice and warm. And so, just kind of for taking secret, let's edit that out so we don't have Chief O'Brien know where I take my naps.
Roger that. Give me your review of Quark's Bar and his Holosuite experiences.
Oh yeah, Quark's Bar is great. The money is a little complicated, and sometimes things in the Holosuites are sticky, but otherwise it's a great time.
Tell me a little bit about working with Odo.
Oh, you want to talk about grumpy. That guy, I don't know if he's ever had fun in his whole life.
Do you have a favorite runabout?
Oh yeah, I love going out in the Orinoco. The only problem is the only thing that the radio plays is Enya.
What is your favorite memory of working on Deep Space Nine thus far?
My favorite memory of working on Deep Space Nine. There was that one time that Chief O'Brien actually invited me along for his for one of his kayaking experiences. But then he hurt his shoulder, and we had to leave early and go see Dr. Bashir. He sees Dr. Bashir an awful lot.
You think there's something going on there?
Between them two? I don't know. I hear people talking, but I think they're just really great friends.
All right. Well, it seems like the temporal anomaly is closing. I wish you best of luck, Ammons. Don't blow up the ship.
No problem.
So you are changing your name to Ammons. Did I say that right?
Yes, I am.
So that is glorious. What is the first name you choose to use? Or are you going with one name like Cher or something?
You guys are talking.
Oh, Brandon?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So he's about movies, so we just had a whole movie discussion, and that's all good.
Yeah, no, that was fascinating. I really enjoyed that.
I got some people who tell me the bonus content's the best stuff, and that kind of hurts my feelings. I don't know. So Patreon banter, the M5 is added in post. But
what, do you mean it's not in there with you?
No. He's on mute. I don't let him talk.
I love going out in the Orinoco. The only problem is the only thing that the radio plays is Enya.
I am one of 10 people who will get that joke, and I really appreciate it. Hey, that's Klingon Chef right there.
Oh, yeah. Does he have a name? I can't remember if he had a name.
Klingon Chef?
Yeah, he was the best, though.
Klingon Chef. Only in 2 episodes. Did you know how I got that?
No, I don't.
So Lee Sargent, I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but he does a lot of Star Trek cartoon art.
Okay.
I'm sure you would recognize his style, right? Because he posts a lot. And if you're on Star Trek Twitter, you would see it. But anyway, he put out that he drew Klingon Chef. And I said, Klingon Chef is my favorite. Whenever I see him, I want to sing Klingon opera. And he's like, I dare you to sing Klingon opera. And I was like, stand by, bro. So there is a tweet of me singing Klingon opera. And and I ordered the T-shirt of this.
That's awesome.
So I have the T-shirt with that on it. And so I'm wearing the T-shirt and I'm singing 3 lines of Klingon opera very badly. And he's like, hey, send me your address. I'm going to send you something. And he sent me the original.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
So that's that right there. So I had to get that framed. So that's my favorite character from Deep Space Nine.
I do follow him. He follows me too.
Yeah. He's. I know you would know who he was once you saw the art. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just there are so many people on Twitter. I'm not kidding you. Like I recognize them by their little images and can't remember their names to save my life.
Do you know what is really weird that happened to me on the Star Trek cruise and at STLV, especially since I started doing podcasting? The number of people who are like, I follow you on Twitter, and then I'm looking and it's like, no, you don't. But Twitter keeps putting my tweets in their feed, and so they think they follow me, but they don't.
Yeah, I've had that happen.
There's so many people that this happens to. And there's, what's also weird is the number of people who follow me who don't listen to my show. so it's like, you might want to listen to my show. It's for free. It's free.
Yeah. It's pretty good, actually.
I mean, it's all right if you like the sort of thing,
Yeah.
But, hey, it is what it is. All right. Yeah, I just don't think that there's any consistency or understanding the time paradoxes or any of that stuff. Which, by the way, as an interesting diversion, if you've ever seen the 12 Monkeys remake that Terry Matalas did for, I think it was Sci-Fi Channel?
No, I've only ever seen the original movie.
So the whole point of the 12 Monkeys TV show, not really a spoiler, this is just kind of the premise of the show, is that they're sending people back in time after this kind of apocalypse to try to prevent it from happening. That's kind of what the show's about. And this army of the 12 Monkeys is trying to make it happen. And then you discover that, of course, they actually have very good reasons for what they want to do, which is normal, what you would expect. They're not mustache twirling idiots, right? They're in it for a reason that actually makes sense for them.
Yeah.
And to some other people, too. You could see why they're doing what they're doing. And it's actually not for a bad reason. I will just say that. You can say that they shouldn't do it anyway, but at least you can understand that what they're doing is for a good reason. Mm-hmm. That show, like they make they make a really good attempt at trying to explain paradoxes, how things work in the show, like what happens if like you're wearing there's a scene where somebody has a watch and they bring back the watch in time and put it near the earlier version of the watch and you see what happens.
Oh.
So it's like future watch and present watch, and like they have thought through like what all this means. And it's that, like, that's a show where they tried to make sense of all of it.
Okay.
You bring that in. Star Trek, I don't think, has ever tried to, like, have the whole string board up on the wall and be like, okay, so this thing happened, we split the timeline. Like, no, I think it's cursory at best. And once again, it's Star Trek fans trying to cash a check that the show never wrote, of saying like all this stuff makes perfect sense if you think about it. I don't think that it ever has. And I don't think they ever promised that. Yeah. And I think it's a mistake to try to force it.
Yeah.
But people still try. People still try. I don't know.
Yeah, they'll definitely have to go to that level if they want to do temporal wars, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think it would almost detract from the show if they tried to have everything make all that much sense. Are there any other episodes you want to talk about?
No, I can't think of any off the top. I mean, no, not off the top of my head. It's like these aren't like exactly like my favorite or my opinion of the best episodes, but I'm very much on a Jerry Ryan 7 of 9 kick, so that's kind of like where I was mentally at when I made the list.
That's okay.
So, yeah.
It's okay. You gave me a hard time about trying to pick some episodes, but I tell you, there's no pressure on any of it.
I know. It's just like trying to pick your favorite children. It's just so hard because it's like I can watch Deep Space Nine over and over and over again and still enjoy it. And so it's hard for me to be like, what it was like, even just trying to like, I didn't want to talk about like Chief O'Brien going to prison. Like, I feel like that's been done to death, but it's such a good episode. And, it's just, yeah.
So, what was your opinion of the Strange New Worlds premiere?
I love Strange New Worlds. I have I really want to order Una's uniform for one. I got to post my cosplay online. I meant to do it last week, but then the world exploded, and I'm really enjoying where the show is going. Mm-hmm. So but I'm one of those ones who I just like to listen. I like to enjoy the story for what it is, and I'm terrible at being critical about a story like as it comes out, and it's not a thing I intend to cure about myself. I just like to enjoy things.
Yeah.
So yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
It's fun, and I'm loving it, and I can't wait to see where else we go next.
So how'd you feel about Picard season 2?
I liked Picard season 2. I gotta be honest. Again. Sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry for. No apologies.
As I say, literally, I'm not that critical, but I found the ending of Picard season 1 a little frustrating in that it feels, I shouldn't say this because I know people are going to like get upset, but it feels like a poorly written like fan fiction where you just start throwing things at the wall at the end and then close it all down. It just kind of like came together. It became too much, too fast, and then was over. And I feel like this one was so much like better paced and a more well-rounded story. And like learned to love characters that like I wasn't a huge Jurati fan in the first season. And yet I find myself loving her in the second season. Right on. Learning even more about 7 of 9. I like not a huge Rafi fan in the first season. Loved her in the second season. So really like that. would love to see where season 3 takes us to.
All right, cool. And so I want to ask you about Prodigy and Lower Decks, since we're talking about the newer Trek stuff.
Prodigy is fun.
So almonds, we have talked, and I'm saying that the right way, yeah?
Yes, yeah, almonds, yeah. It's a funny thing, and because I hesitated. I'm sorry. No, I just picked up my microphone because I wasn't using my brain. Sorry, I hesitated earlier when I said my character's name because in my head I'm in this weird mental space where my name is Almonds, but the ensign is Ensign Amons, and I don't know why that's a thing I do, but it's a thing I do.
So is that why you put the pronunciation in there? Is that for you and not for your readers?
A little bit for me, yeah.
Now, just between you and I, a left-handed spanner is a very, very deep-cut Star Trek trivia reference. So I'm just going to leave that out there, and I'm going to put this in the bonus content. If anybody out there knows where a left-handed spanner comes from, send me a DM on Twitter or email me, and I will give you a shout out on the show, because that is like buried deep in some Star Trek stuff. So if anybody knows where that comes from and you can correctly identify it, just let me know and I'll give you a shout out. Cause that was just something that I put in basically to please myself, because I'm about 12 years old and really appreciate stupid stuff like that.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the ODN coupler versus the phase compensator, wasn't that the thing that Garrick like stabbed that guy with in that one creepy episode of Impact Noir?
It could be. It could be. I literally just went to Memory Alpha and just like typed in like engineering tools, and it came up with a list because, of course, Memory Alpha has engineering tools used in Star Trek as an article, and it just has a list. So I picked a couple from there. So that could be the case.
Well, there you go. Add that in there. If someone can send us which two devices he was saying that they got wrong and then stabbed him with, then, maybe we can send some sort of bonus to them.
Absolutely. We will absolutely do that. Now, as a reminder, I forgot to mention this. You know that I tweet these out after the episode drops as polls.
Yes.
So you are free to engage or not with people who make comments on those. So that's entirely up to you. Hey, boom diggity, we're done.
Yay!
I hope that wasn't too stressful for you.
No, it was great.
I was afraid you were going to be a little nervous based on the way you were talking when we started.
Well, I am nervous, but I managed to get through.
Why be nervous?
Oh, you'll find. I'm nervous about everything.
Don't. There's nothing nervous here. We're here to celebrate Star Trek fans.
I am like Ezri
spread the love and joy.
I have a lot of Ezri Dax in me on that level.
That's my favorite Dax, which I realize is heretical. You're not supposed to like Ezri. It's all supposed to be Jadzia. But
I know. I love Jadzia in her own right, but yeah, Ezri connected to me on a whole different level. So
me too. I really like the idea that we had sort of this accidental Dax, and she was just in a place that she didn't want to be due to circumstance. I just found something really appealing, about that. And I think, for me, especially because it was in contrast to like the Jadzia character who from like day one of birth was like, I will have a symbiont, and she was like doing all the things and winning all the prizes and, like totally focused on that goal. And then Ezri's like, to hell with all that noise, all of a sudden, boom, symbiont.
Well, I use that in my story because arguably my character Almonds is technically the name of the symbiont, which I guess in some egotistical way, maybe I could live on for hundreds of years, but that's not really gonna happen. Anyway,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that you were a join trill. I missed that part.
Yeah.
In the RP.
Yeah, no, she is. It's a minor part. It played a bigger role when we used to do deeper storylines. But yeah, in my story I wrote about her, it's she literally doesn't want to be joined because it's a very like privileged society thing, and I do cover that in one of the books that takes place on Trill, talking about how society's built around, and they get all the special opportunities. And it's like,
are you talking about The Lives of Dax?
I think so, yeah.
Because somebody else on the show wanted to talk about that book, so I had to read it. And I was like, of course Trill Society is like the symbiont people are up here, and then like there's like the underclass of all the not worthies,
yes. And she didn't want one, but because of how circumstances, she wants to be in Starfleet so badly, and apparently getting a symbiont is a way to get in. She gives in and gets this done, and it doesn't make her happier, but it gets her foot in the door, and so that's part of her whole tragic backstory.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I really should finish writing that someday.
You should finish it and you should post it.
Yeah.
You should post it on what is that? Archive of Our Own, right? The big fanfic library site.
Yeah, I think right now it's only on fanfiction.net or something.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Oh, so you have posted some of it.
Yeah, like 3 chapters are up.
Can I link to that? Is that okay, or is it like secret?
No, you can.
Okay.
Maybe if people, I don't know, read it, maybe it'll be pushed to finally finish it. Yeah, it's just I gotta get the time and the drive.
I know, right? I find it very hard, but I mean, that's why I can only do one of these a month. Yeah. At the most. I mean, people don't understand. It's not just the recording time.
Yeah.
It takes me, especially because I'm not that great of an editor, like it takes me, I would say, I don't know, like 2 hours of editing for every hour of content that eventually gets released.
Yeah.
So like a 2-hour episode, that's 4 hours of editing, and then all the ancillary stuff.
I feel your pain because I used to do like YouTube videos and they would be like 9-10 minute long videos, but I would spend days editing these things together. And I apologize for you having to deal with my voice over and over again, so that'll be fun. Stop,
it's great. What? It's fine. It's fine.
Because
it's authentic.
I had to suffer through it.
You know what? I will tell you, I've said this before on the show. There's so many of these where I think, man, that interview was just fantastic. Like I could just like record the rappers and just like drop the whole thing in and hit send, and then I put it in the editing rack and I listen to myself and I'm like, oh man, like I have got to take like the scalpel to this thing. Like this is not good. and I will sit there with that razor tool and just be like editing myself, and moving words around. And I just, oh God, it's so bad. Yeah. It's so bad. Oh.
Yep. I feel your
pain.
And
it's usually on my part. What were you doing on YouTube?
Again, I was trying to make videos about theme parks.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
is your channel still up?
Yeah, it's still up, but I don't really want anyone to go there.
Oh, you don't want me to link to that?
No. Because here's the stupid part. I spend all this time, and I feel like I like work. Oh my God, my favorite video I spent a ton of time on. I love this slow motion shots, and I would spend way too much time syncing things to music. And of all my videos, the video that got the most views is a comic video about me putting up shelves.
You know what? It's the authenticity.
Yeah, I think that's it. And that's why sometimes I think maybe I should just do videos, as my character, like making Star Trek stuff. Like maybe people would like that. And because I like to put that level of humor I put into my character, like into my videos. It's like, I've just always been like this, like low level, like parody comic writer. And okay, we didn't discuss this in the podcast, but I was, when I was younger, I don't want to say interned, but I worked with a cartoonist. I learned how to do comic cartoons, and he's still a published cartoonist.
Oh, wow. Was this up in Alaska?
Yeah. So
that's great.
So I learned the arts and the writing and about the timing and character development of developing like the Sunday funnies.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it never went anywhere, but it still exists in all my work, which is why it's kind of fun being a Twitter character, because I can write without having to spend all the time drawing. Well, I'm looking forward to when you finally put the GIF on of them loading the torpedo. That's going to be exciting.
Well, but see, you will know by the time that GIF drops if you're in the torpedo case.
Awesome.
who's trapped in the little torpedo case, right? About to be ejected out of the tube. You will know. Well, I've had a great time. I mean, I hope this was okay for you. And
yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't get the camera working. I think I've had to move my office, and I think something damaged it. It just doesn't seem to be working right. So
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. But it's always important to me that people feel like they have a good experience on the show.
Yeah. You just missed out on me over gesticulating, because I do that sometimes.
And I do as well.